Roman Oseghale would be the one to take the next, give us the next presentation.
Roman Oseghale is the head consultant at IntelServe Incorporated, a Canadian business consulting company with focus on business intelligence analysis, which helps companies with research-based data and analysis on market and industry trends, identifying opportunities for either local or international expansion to increase market share, revenue, and profit. He obtained his bachelor's and master's degree in architecture from Edo State University, Ekoma, and an executive master's in business administration, management and operations, executive MBA, from the University of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. He is a focused and motivated individual who is able to add significant value to any organization or economy. As a trained business intelligence analyst generating and using big data, he is able to He possesses very strong qualitative and quantitative analytical skills. With experiences from different business backgrounds, he has been able to apply such experiences into helping companies in Canada using data to approach problem solving and discover their potentials within the markets, industries, and the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Roman Oseghale.
His Highness Muhammad Lamido Sanusi II, His Excellency Mr. Udom Emmanuel, Governor of Akwa Ibom State, His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde, Governor of Oyo State, Chairman of the session, Alhaji Abdul Lateef A. Awuyemi, Honorable Justice Kashim Zana, Chief Judge, Borno State, Mrs. Ifueko Omogwe Okaru, President of ICAN, Dame Joy Onome Adewi, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to present this paper, Redefining a New Model of Accountable Leadership in Nigeria in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. To understand this topic, we must first understand what the Fourth Industrial Revolution is, how it has been achieved, the evolutions of the revolutions, that is how we got to the Fourth Industrial Revolution from the First Industrial Revolution. Then we will decide if the topic is possible. And if it's possible, how we are going to go about it. And if it's not possible, what we must do to make it possible. I submitted some slides. I would like them up, please. Thank you.
Anything else?
Let's go to slide 2, please.
Serious.
Before the Industrial Revolution, before the First Industrial Revolution, was the agrarian era. And basically what happened in the agrarian era was man used his hands to farm the land and work the land. So there were no machines. And then those who produced actually produced in small shops or in their homes, which was basically called the cottage industries. Please, slide 2, please. Okay. So when they finish their production, they basically bring the production to a collection point where they sell these goods. Slide 3. But somebody now thought of how can we mechanize things? How do we use machines to start producing? Thomas Newcomen in 1712 came up with the idea of the steam engine, but it was not perfected until 1778 by James Watt. And this was the beginning of mechanization. If you remember the choo-choo train. Now, what did it use? The choo-choo train and the other machines used water power, steam power, and coal. Coal was the fuel then. And what did this do? The effect was that, slide 4, please. The effect was that it gradually replaced an economy based on manual labor to one dominated by industry and manufacture of machineries. Increase in efficiency, less human effort, higher productivity. Each time there's an industrial revolution, it basically actually pushes the economy to a new potential. And this first industrial revolution later spread through Western Europe. But there were critical success factors that always follows all the revolutions. Innovation. The innovation of that period was the steam engine. Government policy. Government always brings up policies to quickly support the innovation so that the country can be industrialized. And then availability of resource demand, and then industrial infrastructures. Because of time, I won't be able to go in depth in all of the critical success factors. But part of what the government put in place then, as far back as the 18th century, was that they allowed immigration from Europe, that is Western Europe to, Eastern Europe, to come into Britain because of industrialization. And then they had to now start building industrial infrastructures that will accommodate and help the efficiency in transportation of goods, canals for shipments, and then railroads. Slide 5, please. Then the second industrial revolution came. The second industrial revolution was basically electricity, combustion engine, and mass production. This was also known as the technological revolution. It was basically built on the first. One of the things that we need to understand was that there was no revolution that stood out. They were always a continuation of the previous. Invention was electricity, combustion engine, and mass production from 1850 to 1914. And then the effects, actually, slide 6, the effect was that electricity as a source of power further increased the efficiency of these machines. Production cost and prices reducing drastically. The second industrial revolution improved existing manufacturing and production methods. Increase in efficiency, less human efforts, higher productivity, and more profit. In fact, when Henry Ford set up his production line, it used to take the Ford Motor Company 12 hours to produce one car. But when they set up the production line and electricity came into effect, it took them only 1 hour, 33 minutes to produce one automobile. And then somebody invented the communications to which also facilitated people communicating over long distance. And then the light bulb also came up. The light bulb facilitated manufacturing in the sense that people could work during the day and work at night. And then production continued to increase. Critical success factors, innovation was always there. Electricity, combustion engine, and then steel replaced iron for construction. That was when all the sky rises started going up in the United States. Government policy. Government jumped in and made sure that there were policies to support this innovation and increase productivity in the economy. Part of it was higher tariffs to protect American industries from foreign competition. Land was granted to railroad companies to encourage construction. The army were employed to forcefully remove Indians from their western lands, desired by farmers and mining companies. In 1812, Congress passed the Pacific Railway Act, which authorized the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, availability of resource demand. This was when oil now started to be the hot cake. Industrial infrastructure. Prior to 1871, approximately 45,000 miles of railroad tracks had been laid. Between 1871 and 1900, as the Industrial Revolution gained momentum, another 170,000 miles were added to the nation's growing railway system. Slide 7, please. Now, the third industrial revolution, computer, IT, and automation. One of the things you need to understand here is this. As the machines were evolving, they were getting smarter. The third industrial revolution was about computer, IT, and automation, also known as the digital revolution, which was built on the second industrial revolution. Inventions were the semiconductors, transistors, mainframe computing, personal computer, and the internet. and it started from 1950. Machines automated led to reduced effort in operations, greater accuracy, and in some cases, complete replacement of human agents. Slide 8, please. Now, the internet came and changed everything. The effect was that the world gradually became a global village through interconnectivity. Every business had the potential of becoming an international business with an online presence. Explosion of world economy, combined world GDP was 1.369 trillion in 1960. When the third industrial revolution was kicking off, it increased to 22.627 trillion in 1990. And with personal computer and internet, increased to 87.7 trillion in 2019. Now, that is an increase of over 6,300%. But the interesting thing was that at the same time, the same period, population from 1960 was 3.031 billion and only increased to 7.7 billion in 2019. That's an increase of 154%. But the economy, the global economy exploded. So people were not just confined to their villages anymore, towns or city. You had the potential of being an international businessman or, if you had an online presence. Now, if you look at the graph under, the countries that benefited were those that heavily invested in the 4 critical success factors. And what are they? The innovation. These countries innovate. They bring out good government policies to support whatever industrialization they are driving. They make sure that there's availability of resource demand. If you go back to the first industrial revolution, the major resource demand then was coal and steel. And Britain made sure that they had them in abundance to drive the industrialization. Now, in the US, the third industrial revolution was about it was also about space program. The US spent hundreds of billions of dollars to make sure that they were ahead in the space program. Then industrial infrastructures, satellites into space, and then fiber optic cables were laid under the ocean bed around the world. There are about 550,000 miles of fiber optic cables buried in the ocean, enabling fast interconnectivity and communication network, which is enough to go around the circumference of the world 22 times. They made sure that all these industrial infrastructures were in place. Slide 10. Now, I'm going to analyze the critical success factors so you understand how all these things are interconnected. Innovation. Now, when you look at the Global Innovation Index, you find out that the most industrialized countries actually make up the first 30 countries of the Global Global Innovation Index. Please go back to slide 10, please. The Global Innovation Index. Now, when you innovate, you have new products, you solve problems, you introduce new technologies into the market, people will always buy. Samsung is South Korea, right? And then Apple is what? The United States. They are always coming up with new innovation. They have products to sell. And when you innovate, when you go to the Global Competitive Index, you find out that it is these same countries that make up the first 30 to 40 countries in the Global Competitiveness Index. Why? Innovation leads to competitiveness. Samsung is always competing against Apple. Apple is always competing against Samsung, right? Now, we go to government policies. When you look at the ease of doing business, you find out that these same countries make up the first 30 to 40 countries in the ease of doing business. All these things are not coincidence, right? They are actually strategies to drive industrialization. And then availability of resource demand, and then industrial infrastructure. Please go to slide 12. If you go to the Global Infrastructure Index, quality of infrastructure country ranking, you find out that these same countries make up the global infrastructure index, first 30 to first 40. Why? I'll explain. You see, if one of these critical success factors is missing, then industrialization becomes mission impossible. For instance, you understand why some countries, right, they will rather overthrow the government of another country because of mineral resources. If they don't have access to that mineral resources, they cannot manufacture. So they will do everything possible to make sure that they have access to it, even if it's going to cost war. So all this stuff are interconnected. So if you do not invest in one, innovation, right, is driven by research and development. Research and development, if you go find out these first 30 to 40 countries, they invest the highest as a percentage of GDP in research and development in the world. Research and development is driven by education. If you also go to the Human Development Index, you find the same list of the same countries that they are the first 30 to first 40 countries doing the same thing. They are ranked first to 30 or first to 40 because they know that if you educate people, education is what drives research and development is what drives innovation. And then when you now go to the funding, they are the ones that actually spend the highest in education in the world. So the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution is about AI, big data, Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things, and machine learning. It's going to be built on the third. Now, what is going to happen is this. I want to explain. Humans, we have 5 senses, right? You have the sense of touch, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, and the sense of hearing. Over time, from the first industrial revolution, what they did was to build those 5 senses into machines. You know machines can see, right? There are cameras, machines carry cameras. They see, they can scan your face, right? And that information goes into their CPU, which is our own brain, right? Now, machines can hear, they can detect sounds. Machines they can even do it better than us. They'll tell you the decimal. They'll tell you what animal is making that sound. Machines can smell. They can pull gases and analyze the gas and tell you the percentage of other gases that make up that gas, right? Machine can taste. They can analyze chemicals and tell you the components of that chemical. Now, they can also touch and tell you what substance that whatever they touch is made of. The next thing, let's go back to the humans. Apart from your 5 senses, there is something we call the 6th sense. Your 6th sense is your gut feelings or intuition, and is processed by information. What you have seen in the past, the smell you had in the past, something you tasted, or something you heard in the past. So if there's no evidence, you pull information from your CPU to analyze what is going on. Excuse me, please. To analyze what is going on, and then you come to a logical conclusion. Now, this is what they are now trying to do to the machine. So the machines are going to get smart. But the interesting thing is this. You need constant information. Just like you and I do. We need constant information to keep updating ourselves. So the 4th industrial revolution, slide 14. The 4th industrial revolution is going to be based on data, big data. If you're not a data-driven society, you're going to be left behind. And that brings us back to the question, redefining a new model of accountable leadership in Nigeria in the 4th industrial revolution. Are we able to achieve it without data? Data is going to be the lifeblood of the 4th industrial revolution. I'll prove that to you now. Now, go to slide 14, please. Now, in 1917, The largest companies by market capitalization were US Steel, Andrew Carnegie, American Telephone and Telecoms, and then Standard Oil, what do you call his name again, were the biggest companies by market capitalization. That was because that was what was driving the first industrial revolution. You understand? Then you move to the second industrial revolution when the mainframe computers started. You see, the largest companies then was IBM by market capitalization, right? That because it was the need of that period. Now, fast forward September 2020, which is the biggest companies? You see Apple at 1.9 trillion, Microsoft at 1.5 trillion, Alphabet, which is Google, at 969 billion, Amazon 1.5 trillion, Facebook 711 billion. All these companies are digital companies. They're gathering information, they're gathering data. So you don't have data, you will not survive the fourth industrial revolution. It's simple, and you will be left behind. Africa missed out in the first industrial revolution. We missed out in the second industrial revolution. The third industrial revolution, fine. We were able to partake in it. Why? Because we used it to drive services, not manufacturing. But the fourth industrial revolution is going to take things to an unprecedented level. And if we're not ready for it, we are just going to be a dump yard and be left not 100 years behind again, probably like 200 years behind. So, critical success factors, slide 15, is going to be innovation, government policies, availability of resource demand. If you look at the picture up there, 2017, The Economist released an article. It said the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but what? Data. Everything you do, you buy, you smile, you click, everything is being stored as data. And this is what the machines, that's why they call it the cyber physical system. The cyber is the internet, while the physical is going to be the machines and the robots. And that's where the fight over the 5G came from, right? Who is going to be transmitting? It has to be super fast, the way your brain transmits signals to your body to act. So these robots and machines are going to be scanning hundreds of millions and billions of data to go into what is called machine learning. They are going to be looking for sequence of things that are similar before they now take decisions. My time is up, so I have to wrap up, please. Now, redefining the new model of accountable leadership. Key areas of accountability will include revenue generation, budgetary / fiscal expenditure, and policy making. Slide 16. Now, how are we going to benefit from revenue generation? Now, AI, if we adopt this AI strategy, AI is going to help us in detecting and predicting corruption and preventing financial crime. Nigeria is rated 149 out of 180 countries in the Transparency International. The UN estimates that I think 1.4 trillion to between 1.4 to 3.5 trillion dollars is lost to money laundering and related crimes alone every year. Now, AI can help the Nigerian government to detect fraud and predict corruption. AI algorithm can be used to identify ghost workers and stop payment. And it can also help Nigerian government stop pension fraud, analyzing massive amount of data created in the pension system. AI will increase revenue generation, efficiency, and effectiveness. Federal Inland Revenue Services reported that the agency loses 15 billion annually to tax evasion. Tax authorities can use AI to track tax collection, payments, and those that evade tax. Detecting procurement fraud and delivering better value for money. Average of 10 billion is being lost annually in Nigeria to fraudulent practices in award of contract, lack of procurement plan, poor project prioritization, and budgeting processes, lack of budgeting processes, lack of competition and value for money and other kinds of manipulations of procurement and contract award processes. Continuous improvements of macroeconomic forecasting. Now, we're a monolithic economy. AI can detect, okay, within the last 2 years, Norway has consistently bought more electric cars than biofuel cars. Now, all these informations are on the net. So AI pulls them, right? And tells you what is going on to tell you, look, in the next 10 years, the global demand for oil based on population growth, blah, 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 is going to be this. So you know what your revenue will be in the next 10 years and where you have to start diversifying your economy. AI can also help you detect fraud in the payment of subsidies. If you had read one of the reports that was brought out during the subsidy period where people were scamming the government and saying they brought fuel in, whereas the vessel they said brought the fuel in at that particular date was actually somewhere else. So through the global positioning system, GPS, AI can track if that vessel is at a Apapa port or Tinkan port, AI can conservatively tell you that vessel is discharging fuel at that particular time, identifying irregularities for public sector audit, converting unstructured data to useful data. So policy making, big data will enable government make immediate decisions. Available data will make people question government more. AI will give recommendations that should be implemented. Impact of big data in government policy making will include what the public wants and how to meet the demand, what does the economy lack and how Nigeria can immediately attend to it, which sector requires immediate modification, and how Nigeria can prioritize resources for it. So in conclusion, Nigeria needs to invest. If we're going to benefit, slide 19, if we're going to benefit from the fourth industrial revolution, Nigeria must invest in the 4 critical success factors. Innovation, invest in central data system and data innovation. Government policy, we must bring up policies that will encourage the industries and also help the service sector at this critical time. Availability of resource demand, which is financial resources, big data, and skilled workers. Then industrial infrastructure. Nigeria must start putting together the industrial infrastructure to support the 5G network. So conclusions, to benefit from the fourth industrial revolution, Nigeria must invest in the 4 critical success factors. The investment will not be comparable to the benefits. You know, if you think education is expensive, they say what? Try ignorance. So if we think these investments are going to be expensive, wait till robots start telling us what to do in the Western world. And then all industrialized nations invest in the 4 critical success factors. This is the reason they control world economy and have lifted millions out of poverty. There are disruptive technologies coming up. If we do not invest, we will remain obsolete. There's a saying that says, innovate or die. You must be ahead the pace of change, or else you will be toasted. Thank you.